Yes.
Okay, because on the agenda it's with an S and in my notes it's without.
Yeah, we caught that one. So we have updated the online version as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it looks like you're live, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's special council meeting on Monday, February the 8th. Due to COVID-19 and the province of Ontario's stay-at-home order, which is in effect for all of Ontario, City Hall is not open except for very limited services by appointment only. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting electronically by accessing the meeting live stream video at kitchener.ca/watchnow. While in-person delegation requests are not feasible at this time, members of the public were invited to submit any written comments or participate electronically in the meeting by contacting delegation@kitchener.ca. Written comments have been circulated prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. We'll now begin with the land acknowledgement as we do with all of our meetings. Today, we gather on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize our responsibility to serve as stewards for the land and honor the original caretakers who came before us. Our community is enriched by the enduring knowledge and deep-rooted traditions of the diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Kitchener today. We have a number of items on the agenda. The first is the amendment to the administrative penalty bylaw, idling control, coming out of today's Community Services Committee meeting. Councillor Ioannidis, do you want to bring that forward? Or Councillor Gazzola, do you have a question before that?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, what is the rush to bring these tonight? We just discussed these things at noon or earlier today. I've always liked the practice of where you deal with something at committee and then the public and the council themselves have a week or maybe sometimes 2 weeks to think about what you're doing before it's ratified at council. So what is the urgency for all of these topics that are before us tonight? What is the urgency to pass them tonight as opposed to at our next regularly scheduled council meeting?
So, Councillor Gazzola, I think as you're aware, our normal practice is almost in all instances to have that gap. I'll let staff speak to the idling situation. On the issue of the business impact, as you know, this is a challenging time for our small businesses, and I think they're looking for some surety as much as possible as far as we can provide assistance in the areas that we're responsible for, and that's why we're dealing with that item today and not waiting the 2 weeks until our next meeting. Can staff comment on the idling controls situation? Mr. May, I see you've turned your camera on.
Sure, Mr. Mayor. Council may recall that I think it was earlier this year that Council actually provided direction and endorsed a recommendation to proceed with the anti-idling bylaw. I believe it was the last council cycle, although clerks may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, that you actually approved the bylaw itself. So the bylaw is in effect. What you have before you is a small amendment that we need to make to the AMPS bylaw in order to be able to charge the fee.
Okay, so it's really just a quick little cleanup matter, Councillor Gazzola.
Well, if I could just, I don't have a.
Well, Councillor Gazzola, okay, go ahead.
I don't have a problem. I know that as far as the idling bylaw, yes, it was passed, but I think if you ask 9 out of 10 people in our community about it, they would really have no idea where it's going, you know. And as far as the support for COVID, you know, it isn't just businesses that are struggling. Everybody's struggling. Everybody has been struggling. I don't know that what we're doing here tonight is going to stop the struggles, but I'll lower my hand and shut up. Thank you.
not asking you to do that, Councillor Gazzola, but and if you don't want to approve it, you don't need to support it. I guess I would point out that earlier in the pandemic, we dealt with some of these issues directly at special council and didn't have them go through committee first. As you know, we've tried to return to a regular process, which has things come into committee and then we deal with them at council afterwards. So I'll now go back to Councillor Ioannidis and ask him to bring number 1 forward.
Okay. It's been moved by myself and Councillor Dave Schneider. That
Has seconded it. Okay, thank you. Any comments? I don't see anyone in the queue. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Moving on to item 2, continued supports for businesses impacted by provincial restrictions. Councillor Ioannidis, you want to bring that forward?
Sure. It's been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Schneider.
Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. I don't know if this is the opportunity. Can I ask for staff to look at the licensing schedule for the small businesses? We talked about that earlier. I didn't really put anything forward. Is that just something I'm assuming is they're going to do and come back if we approve this?
I think we gave that as general direction, and Mr. Bloom indicated that staff would take a look at that as part of what might come back later.
Okay. Okay then. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, could you also make me co-host so I can deal with the hands? Thank you. So all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. We'll now move on to item number 3. Councillor Johnson, you have a motion on COVID-19 sick time.
Yes, thank you. Do we have it on the screen that we can pull up, or do you want me to just read the therefores?
Mr. Madam Clerk?
We can pull it up. Just give me one moment here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, then you can also take us through those operative clauses.
You want me to read the whole thing then?
No, just the operative clauses.
Yeah,
the
okay.
therefore.
The therefores, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Would you like me to do my comments first? Then wait.
No, read the operative clauses and then you can make your comments, please.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for making that nice and big for me. Okay. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Health advocate to the Government of Ontario and the Government of Canada to more fully address the need for paid sick time throughout our workforce to help address ongoing spread of COVID-19 and the spread of other illnesses in the future by requiring employers in Ontario to provide no less than 5 paid sick days annually to workers after 3 months of employment through amendments to the Employment Standards Act 2000 or through a different mechanism, providing necessary funding, fiscal relief, and or supports to employers so that all workers in Ontario have access to no less than 10 paid sick days annually in the event of a declared infectious disease emergency, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. All workers in Ontario have access to protected and paid emergency leave so that care can be provided to children, parents, or other family members who may become ill, and be it resolved that the Council of the City of Kitchener also support the Region of Waterloo Council and its Public Health Board in calling for the Regional Municipality of Waterloo to be designated as part of the Province of Ontario's High Priority Community Strategy so as to implement a range of interventions to slow transmission in higher risk communities within the City of Kitchener and protect our most vulnerable. And further, be it finally resolved that this correspondence be sent to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Ontario's Big City Mayors, and Mayors and Regional Chairs of Ontario, as well as the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and its Big City Mayors Caucus, to advocate with one voice on behalf of Ontario and Canadian municipal elected leaders.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Marsh, have you raised your hand to second that? Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnson, if you want to make your comments?
Yes, thank you. We know that COVID does not attack equally. We like to think that the virus doesn't discriminate, but it does. COVID has disproportionate impacts on communities where more people are racialized and lower income live. These communities should be supported with resources to prevent, manage, and recover from COVID and the impacts it's having on people, affecting their income, employment, etc. Putting back in place paid sick days for all Ontarians will help slow the spread of COVID, helping people who may feel pressured to work when either they or a family member may feel ill, without worrying about losing a job or being docked pay. In a recent report from the Toronto Star, they found that 1 in 4 COVID cases in Peel Region found through contact tracing were a result of those who went to work sick. Lack of paid sick days is hurting vulnerable workers. I ask for the support of my council colleagues to call on the province to reinstate paid sick days for all Ontarians. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Marsh, did you want to, as the seconder, make your comments?
Well, I want to just make a minor little tweak that just to suggest it, because at the beginning be it resolved that the Board of Health but I think it should be
it should be the City of Kitchener. Good point.
Thank
you.
Thank you. So just so we're clearer on who we are. But otherwise, I totally agree. And I'm just wondering, though, also, is this only to the Ontario government, or should it be also something that the federal government would do? Because I'm just curious about that. I didn't look into it enough.
So that first paragraph does in fact reference both, that the City of Kitchener advocate to the Government of Ontario and the Government of Canada?
Great. Okay, thanks.
No problem. Councillor Gazzola, you're up next.
Yeah, one of the questions I had has already been answered, because I wondered who the Board of Health that we're advocating to. So it's the City of Kitchener, and we're asking the two levels of senior government to put this in place. We're not asking the City of Kitchener to put it in place. We're asking, I gather you're asking the provincial and federal governments to put this in place and to fund it. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the intent of the motion, and that was the intent of it when we dealt with it at the region, and when Toronto and the GTHA municipalities dealt with it as well.
So, and then the second, there's another part there that deals with the region being designated. What is that all about? What does that relate to?
So the province of Ontario has designated certain areas for getting additional supports, and the region has requested that, whereas Toronto and Peel and others have been designated as part of that we be designated in the same way.
To get what? What is it we want to get?
To get additional supports from the provincial government in terms of dealing with COVID-19. So
that's really got nothing to do with the main motion, and it's it's a whole different thing.
Well, no.
It,
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Johnson.
I was going to say it kind of speaks to the whole piece about the disproportionate effect of not having paid sick days, et cetera. And the mayor can better speak to this piece, but the region has put in place supports that help people that maybe live in multi-generational housing, et cetera, be able to have hotel space, et cetera. So there's been a number of supports put in place that are really important to help with the help stop the spread of COVID. And this is another piece of that.
So why aren't we asking for the senior governments to treat all municipalities equally? Why are we asking for a preferred status? Wouldn't this be something that should apply to all local governments?
Councillor Johnson, do you want me to answer that from a
yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Councillor Gazzola, the reason is that we know that there are different impacts in different parts of the province. Things are very different in the Toronto and the GTHA and up to and including us than maybe they are on the fringes of the 401 corridor, and certainly different than they are in the north. And so in an effort to respond to the issues that have been identified by the numbers and some of the issues that have been identified through disaggregated data in some of our harder hit neighborhoods, including ones that you represent, we're looking to get the resources from the province in order to be able to more effectively respond in the future.
Okay, my last question is, has the region passed a similar resolution?
Yes, they have.
In its entirety, with the sick leave and all of that?
Yeah, the region's done that through two different resolutions.
But exactly the same.
Same principles, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? So it's been moved and seconded. Those in favor? Any opposed? Councilor Gazzola, was that opposed or in favor? That was in. Was that in favor? I couldn't tell by the timing of your hand. That's why I'm asking.
I'm a long ways away. That's why it seems to take longer for it to come through to you. I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you. Well, you know what, you council may get a chuckle out of this, but Saturday nights I do a Zoom call with friends, and the friends in Toronto actually see the plays that happen in an NHL game about 30 to 40 seconds earlier than we see them in Kitchener, and another 10 or 15 seconds before they see them in Stratford. So we've had to learn to not divulge key moments ahead of time because it becomes a spoiler. Anyway, moving on. We'll move on to the next motion. And I do believe there's a couple people who may in fact have conflicts with this. So I'll take any conflicts now. Councillor Davey.
Yes, I have a conflict on this item as my wife works at Costco.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
My wife owns a restaurant in Elmira, so I probably somehow, some way might have a conflict.
Okay. So I'll just remind both of you to fill out the required paperwork afterwards with the clerk's office. So I gave notice of this motion, and it has to do with Reopening Ontario Act. I will be either looking for someone else to move it on my behalf. Councillor Marsh, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Galloway-Shelock, thank you. And if council indulges me, this motion is similar again to ones that have been adopted by municipalities across Ontario, including the region. And it's really calling for more consistent access and to the province in terms of getting clarity on regulations, calling for more equitable capacity regulations for restaurants. Because, for example, right now you can be an 800 square foot restaurant and be allowed to have 10 seats, or you could be a 5,000 square foot restaurant and also only be allowed to have 10 seats. And yet your operating costs are significantly higher. And so the province has been asked to look at that, to look at limiting big box operations. Some of this, today's announcement appears to start regulating in that they will permit some small businesses to reopen, but I think it's still timely for us to deal with this issue, and continuing to look for some equity in terms of inquiry processes and so on. So it has been moved and seconded. Councillor Marsh, did you want to make any comments?
I see small businesses, as we all do, struggle during this pandemic, and we see the big box stores benefiting, and let's try to even out the playing field even a little bit and be more fair. I also would like to say that I think public health has to be consistent in how they enforce the public health regulations in all types of establishments. We are so good at enforcing the rules. For example, at many small businesses, I know of one downtown that they can only have one customer at a time, and there's a lineup many times. That's Legacy Greens. And at the Kitchener Market, we are really limited, whereas at other places, they are not nearly as diligent, and they don't seem to have any consequence for that.
Thank you. And I think Council will note from the update that we received previously from staff that the province did do a bit of a blitz in terms of enforcement. I would say the performance was not great by a number of businesses in the community, but hopefully it was a good educational opportunity. And so if that enforcement unit comes back, people will see things, or people will hopefully see a more positive result. Councillor Galloway-Seelock, you were the seconder.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what Councillor Marsh has said, and what the motion reads, that we need to be more equitable and make sure that our small businesses are getting a fair shake out of all of this too. And so I think that it's important for us to keep advocating for these types of things.
Thank you. And I will say, just between our earlier committee meeting and this meeting, MPP Harris was having his budget consultation for the upcoming provincial budget. And I had my 3 minutes to speak about some of the things that are important to us, and small business and support for small business was one of the issues I identify along the way. Any other comments? If not, those in favor? Opposed? That too is carried unanimously. We'll then move on to the next item in the agenda, and that's to move the in-camera authorization to deal with the in-camera items. And Mr. Clerk, am I reading this right, that we'll be coming back out of caucus to deal with a couple items?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, there will be some items likely that will need to be ratified today.
Okay, thank you. So motion to go in camera for the noted items. Councillor Johnson, Councillor Chapman, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Motion to recess. Councillor Schneider, Councillor Ioannidis. Councillor Gazzola, go ahead.
I just wanted to question whether item number 4, why it's being discussed in camera. Is that not on the agenda for the public meeting this evening?
There is a in-camera item that is being brought forward, and obviously we will deal with anything that's appropriate for in-camera, and we will deal with what is appropriate for public in public.
Did you answer my question, I guess? Is that it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon where there are items that we deal with them in camera for the things like solicitor-client privilege, and then deal with any public items in the public portion of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so all those in favor? Actually, I did that part already. Sorry, the motion to recess. Councillor Michaud, Councillor Schneider.
Due to COVID-19 and the province of Ontario stay-at-home order, which is in effect for all of Ontario, City Hall is now open except for very limited services by appointment only. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting electronically by accessing the meeting live stream video at kitchener.ca/watch now. While in-person delegation requests are not feasible at this time, members of the public are invited to submit written comments or participate electronically in meetings by visiting kitchener.ca/delegations. This is a formal public meeting to consider application under the Planning Act. If a person or public body that would otherwise have an ability to appeal a decision of the City of Kitchener to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Kitchener before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. Before I begin, I would note that written submissions on this matter had been received from Gwen Wheeler, Peter Elgin, Hal Yeager, Gail Poole, Bernie Root, Donald Featherstone, Mario Mado, Kelly Ann Callahan, and Linda Snyder. And these submissions are in opposition. Mr. Bateman, you will be presenting and you have 5 minutes, but before you begin, I just quickly want to comment that we at the moment have 18 registered delegations, and I would encourage the delegates to be mindful of those that have presented before them and to keep their comments succinct and not to repeat points that have already been made. And I would appeal to the committee to be brief with your questions and more so for clarification, as we do have 18 delegations, and if all of us were to ask in-depth questions of each delegation, we'll be here late into the night. That itself is not an issue for me, and I'm sure it's not an issue for many of my colleagues, where we're used to having our meetings run long, but we want to be cognizant of the fact that we have delegations that do want to speak, and if the meeting runs terribly long, many or some of them may not be able to stay on for an extended period, and we don't want to present an opportunity where someone's voice was not adequately heard. So please be mindful of those comments and conduct accordingly. So Mr. Bateman, if you can start it off with your presentation, and then
Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're just having a technical issue with the live stream at the moment. We do have a staff person fixing it for us, but due to the nature of this matter, I would ask if the chair might consider just giving us a couple minutes to get it sorted so that the people watching at home and can see this matter in its entirety.
No, absolutely. I think that's best. Okay.
Thank you very much. We're hopeful that it will only take a few minutes, and I will let you know when we're good to go.
Okay, perfect.